And so our theme of witness is not just how we dialogue with contemporary culture, a dialogue, not a monologue, a dialogue where there are two voices. We listen to people, listen to cultures, listen to people, and also listen to our own experience as Christians and present a dialogue. How do we do that which is good news? Well, the sub-themes of our theme of witness are very clearly two: justice. Justice. What is justice? Not just cold legal justice, but what would justice mean in terms of economics? I was just a few months ago in Volos in Greece, listening to the efforts of the churches, both the Orthodox Church and the Evangelical Church in Greece, in terms of the refugee crisis. And also in terms of economic austerity, the question of the euro. What is justice if it is not also something that brings reconciliation? So that's a second sub-theme of witness: justice, including economic justice in today's world. And the third sub-theme under witness is hospitality. Here in Novi Sad we've been already warmly welcomed. And we've been enjoying the beautiful warm weather. We've been enjoying Serbian food and a little Serbian wine. We have been very well received, and we shall continue to be for the whole assembly. But hospitality is a deeper theme than just coming as tourists. It's much deeper than that. Our theme of hospitality must reckon on what should the hospitality of Europe be with our neighbours in North Africa and our neighbours in the Middle East. Father Heiki, who's the General Secretary, and myself were recently in Beirut in Lebanon, listening to the voices of the churches in the Middle East. And of course, the terrible position of minorities of all kinds, Christian minorities, also Muslim minorities in Syria, and the terrible exodus of human beings, children, women, men. How do we react to that as Europe? And this is not to point fingers. There's no easy solutions. But the governments of the southern European and Eastern European countries have a huge question to face. So what are the Western and Northern European governments doing to help countries such as Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, Spain, Italy? Our themes of witness are not just some kind of repetition of old ecclesiastical words or old biblical words. Our theme of witness is about what is good news from God and the humanity of Jesus Christ and the humanity of the church. And that good news includes the questions of justice, because without justice there is no peace and no witness is effective. And without hospitality, which is about loving all humanity. Well, we shall do lots of things. There'll be some technical stuff. An assembly has to do some internal constitutional stuff, of course. But I shall be very disappointed, and I profoundly hope that we will major on these great themes as a way of representing the gospel of God, good news of God, to humanity in our own continent of Europe. And I say that, of course, coming from a country which has just almost definitely decided to leave the European Union. But just to put that correctly, Europe is much bigger, much bigger and greater than the European Union. That's an aside I made. But we look forward to working with all the countries of Europe as churches, trying to be reconciled ourselves, trying to bring reconciliation between different traditions, cultures, languages, churches, peoples, political systems, economic systems. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Christopher. To your rightmost, we have Danilo Mihailovic with us. He is the representative of the Serbian Orthodox Church and responsible for the local coordination here in Novi Sad.
Yeah, thank you. On behalf of Serbian Orthodox Church and Bishop Irene as the local bishop in Serbian Orthodox Church, first of all, I wish you welcome in our country, and I'm really glad that I already have heard that you feel like you're home here, and hospitality is visible from the very first moment. So I would just mention some basic things. Serbian Orthodox Church is member of Conference of European Churches for many years, for 70s, and we have a really huge tradition in cooperation and dialogue in our Conference of European Churches. And according to decision of Holy Synod of Serbian Orthodox Church, Conference of European Churches was invited to organize their General Assembly here in Novi Sad, and that is a huge honor for us to be today and several next days here together. And I hope that we will have really productive and important insights after these meetings that which implications will be for a long period and a long time in the future. As Reverend Metropolitan Christopher Hill mentioned, Europe is not just in a border of European Union, it's much more than that. And of course we consider ourselves as a part of this old continent. We would like to contribute as Christians in that how we consider ourselves, in how we see ourselves in the future. So I would just one more time would like to underline that please be welcome here and have a really fruitful General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Danilo. We're now going to turn to Beate Fagerli of Church of Norway, but also one of the moderators of the Assembly, who makes sure that the meetings are actually taking place and the negotiations are fruitful. That's all.
Thank you, and thank you to the Serbian churches for inviting us. It's my first time here, so it's very exciting. I'm not the moderator yet, so that will be seen, but I have the chance to sit here and speak on our behalf. And what the moderators suggested, have been discussing among the business things, is the role of CEC in Europe. And in a way, Europe has two legacies. One is a terrible history of wars and conflict. And the other one is a beautiful history of rebuilding society and work on reconciliation. And the churches in Europe have been part of this. So it is always interesting for the churches to meet and acknowledge the past and work on the future. And I think that is what we're really here to do, including some business nitty-gritties. But I really think and hope that the program for this assembly gives an opportunity to look at the future of Europe, and I think it does. So I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you, Beate. And last but not least, Father Heikki Huttunen, CEC General Secretary.
From the staff point of view, somebody was saying yesterday that we have the best local team ever in Novi Sad, and maybe that's nice to recognize also publicly that under the leadership of Danilo Mihailovic, we have a great number of local people who are working for the hosting and for the organizing of the assembly, and have been doing so for quite a long time already. And we see the results of this hospitality, of this will and commitment to receive us, and of some hard work too. So we are very grateful for the invitation of the Holy Synod of the Serbian Orthodox Church, and also our three other member churches. Actually, we have 4 member churches in Serbia. The 3 others are, of course, smaller churches and mainly located and living here in Vojvodina. That is the United Methodist Church and the Slovak Lutheran Church and the Hungarian-speaking Reformed Church. Of course, there are some other Christian churches here too, and we're very happy for all contacts with all of these churches here. To come to Novi Sad was, of course, a decision which was made on the basis of this invitation we received, but also it was a very conscious decision to come to the geographic center of Europe. If you look at the map of the continent of Europe, we're quite in the middle. We're halfway down the Danube, but we are outside of the European Union. So this is exactly the kind of mixed message that we want to give. One of the tasks of the churches, definitely in the European dialogue, is to remind ourselves of the need to hear more than one story. That's what ecumenism is about, that we hear each other's stories. And in European politics and in European discussion, often the Western or Northwestern story of Europe is dominating. And the story of Eastern Europe, Southern Europe are almost ignored or remembered only from time to time. And our task as churches is really to be committed and concentrate on a respectful listening of each other, and then on the basis of this understanding of the multiplicity of reality, to go forward and to find the common ground, common focus, which can only be found if we really are able to listen to each other. So I hope this assembly will be an assembly where we listen and where we speak and where we exchange views. That's how the program is designed. It is not meant to be mainly an administrative assembly. Of course, there's that part too, but the main emphasis is on listening to different views and experiences, and how we then together can focus on the future of Europe. What kind of inspiration and ideas we get from each other, and how can they come together in the work of an organization like the Conference of European Churches.
Thank you, Father Heikki. Before we're opening up the floor to any questions, I just wanted to use the privilege of the chair to ask you, if you, to someone who is not participating here in the Master Center, in the rest of Europe, what 2 or 3 things would you point out to them as the most interesting things to look out for during the assembly, on our website, on social media, and in print?
We shall be having an extensive debate on the vision of the Christian churches for contemporary Europe, and so I think that's certainly something to look out for rather attentively. We shall be having 2 whole sessions on that. One will reflect past consultations. I mentioned one already, one in Greece, but there were other consultations, one in Iceland on the future of vision for Europe for the churches, one in Edinburgh, which was quite soon after the Brexit referendum in the United Kingdom, so you can imagine what we talked about in Edinburgh, and another one in Prague for the Central European region. So I think have a good look at what the CEC, the Conference of European Churches, is trying to say, to listen, as Father Heikki said, listening to each other from different parts of Europe with different perspectives. It won't be a smooth or bland discussion, but what emerges in terms of commonalities on a Christian vision for the future of Europe. At the moment, visions for Europe get no higher than economic growth. Do not human beings have greater aspiration than economic growth? I don't deny the importance of economic growth. Well, I certainly would champion those who suffer from poverty. But surely we have a greater message than just economic growth. And the Christian churches are in a privileged position historically to to contribute to that debate, to contribute to the common good. The church is together ecumenically, but also in contemporary Europe, there is an interreligious element which is of great significance. And sometimes faith can talk to faith.
Yeah.
As I said, the conference is designed to be a discussing conference, a listening and a talking conference. So our keynote addresses on the main themes, which the bishop has mentioned, is certainly one aspect I would tell anyone who is not attending here. But maybe the other one would be to experience Serbia. I started by mentioning the organization and hospitality we have here, but of course we have Serbian contributions in terms of the discussion. And that is something which all of us in the other parts of Europe don't get every time we gather. So that's a special thing I hope our international audience will also be attentive to. Look at the face of Serbia, listen to the stories of Serbia, and how that becomes part of the ecumenical stories, and how is it very much part of the European story.
Thank you. Beate, what do you think is there anything else you want to point out in the program that you find extra particularly interesting?
Yes, if I was sitting up in warm Oslo, following the assembly, I would be interested in the thematic sessions, the discussions, of course. But it's been done a very good job in inviting the speakers, and among them there are very interesting people. And I am looking forward to a speaker who is a young woman from Germany, and she has been known to put young people's role on the agenda. And that will be interesting to discuss, because there are a lot of young people at the assembly, either as stewards helping out, or as youth delegates, or as advisors to the assembly. But she does one more thing. She challenges the churches on its role in society, because she says that churches do not always understand the complexity of society before they engage. This is a very interesting challenge to the churches, and I look forward to hear what the Assembly will say to that.
Thank you. Do we have any questions on the floor before we conclude this? Gentleman here.
Can I speak without using a microphone?
Yes, I will repeat your question.
Okay. Tadej Baknas, Irenikon, Belgium. The Russian Orthodox Church, the Patriarchate of Moscow, is of course an important voice of Christian witness in Europe, but we haven't heard much from them in recent years in CEC. Can we expect some evolution on that level at this present assembly?
So the question is that we haven't heard much from the Russian Orthodox Church in recent times in relation to CEC, and what can we expect on in regards to that at the assembly?
We have learned officially that there will be an observer from the Russian Orthodox Church coming here to Novi Sad, to the assembly, and we are very delighted to welcome her. She comes as an official observer, and we hope that will be the beginning of a discussion which, as you say correctly, has not happened in recent years. So, without saying more, because it's delicate, I'm very, very pleased to have an observer from the Russian Orthodox Church.
Thank you. Any other questions? Gentleman over there. If you could introduce yourself first. And
work without microphone. Okay. My name is Dirk Tissenfeld from Protestant Youth Information from Germany. I've got a question to Father Eki, the General Secretary, on your remark that the message of this assembly from Novi Sad will be also the mixed message that people should listen to stories not only from the north and west that you consider dominant, but also from the south and east. And is that also your understanding of the reality in CEC and not only in European politics, that the North and the Western member churches would be too dominant? And could it be that the lack of Orthodox participation from some bigger member churches and, of course, the missing Roman Catholic voices from the South would have got to do with this imbalance in CEC?
So the question is whether there is a connection between the wider European debate, political debate, with the different narratives coming from different parts of Europe, and whether we have a similar debate within CEC.
I would say that there in fact is a difference between the political debate and the political forum of debate and the church's connections and discussions. I think that, how should I say, to begin with, the history of CEC starts with the need for the churches to listen to each other and to meet each other across the Iron Curtain. CEC was founded in 1959, and this has been very much the raison d'être, or the DNA, of our organization and of European ecumenism in general, I would say. And despite the various difficulties that we also face, I think our organization has been able to keep listening to different voices and give voice to different experiences. In church dialogue, I think in politics also, it is not only a question of a polarized East and West discussion or North and South discussion, but of course there are other nuances, like majority churches and minority churches, like different confessions in different contexts, and the way in which churches in different countries relate to the state. What is the juridical and social position of a church, and how do these things change? What is the experience of the historic majority church of a European country compared to the experience of a migrant church whose people are just arriving in Europe? Or how do we as European Christians relate in general to the change of the religious landscape? So I think in the ecumenical movement we are quite conscious at least about the need to listen to each other and to listen to the multiplicity of voices. Definitely we need to strengthen this identity over and over, because the situations change. The majorities and minorities, the tendencies change, and the social situation changes, and we reflect that. But I think that now that you ask this, maybe we could dare to say that the churches could have something to show to the political dialogue, that we are maybe a little bit more sensitive, more flexible, more interested in the other story than our own.
Thank you. We probably have time for one last question, if there's anyone that's still keen to ask something. Okay. Thank you for this. We'll be back to our online audience. We'll be back in just a few hours with the opening plenary. And yeah, if you have any, to your journalists here, if you have any questions or requests for individual interviews, please talk to me. Thank you.